Hi, friends, and welcome to Season 3 of the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, often known as Dr. T Loves Books, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. I'm an old dog who's always trying to learn new tricks. That's why at each episode of the SLLN podcast, I'll chat with a school librarian about a lesson, program, or activity they love. Hopefully, this can be a place for school librarians to get ideas and find new ways to engage with their students and staff. Speaking of which, I'd love to hear about what you and your friends are doing in your school library. Email me at drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com to tell me about what you're doing, offer feedback about the SLLN podcast, or to request a podcast sticker. As Amy Herman likes to say, being a guest on a podcast is a great way to show your admins you are engaged in meaningful professional development and leadership in the profession. So drop me a line and let's chat. That being said, the opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. I just like to geek out about school libraries. So without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hey everybody, we are back and I'm so excited. I'm getting to talk to Amy Brownlee today, and she has got this. I saw her post on Knowledge Quest and it just lit up my brain because it's like, why am I not doing this with my students? It's so brilliant. So I am so glad that Amy decided to come and share with us. So Amy, I've already jumped in a little bit, but why don't you take a second, tell us who you are, where you're at, what are you teaching?
Thanks so much for having me as a guest. I'm excited to talk about this lesson. It's one of my favorites at the beginning of the year. My name is Amy Brownlee. I am a pre-K through 12th grade librarian in a very small rural school district in central Kansas. So we have two buildings. They're about 5 blocks apart. So that makes my commute back and forth between the buildings really easy. We have a pre-K through 6th grade building, a 7 through 12 building. And then I also teach an hour of 6th grade reading each day as well.
Wow. You got a lot on your plate there. Jeez.
I do. The good news is that I have a lot of variety in my day. So I love that. But the bad news is, sometimes I have so much variety in my day. It is overwhelming. So positives and negatives.
Yeah. I mean, and you've got such an interesting mix of stuff going on too, because like, I know when people have to work in multiple buildings, that's a challenge just in and of itself, even if you're working with the same grade levels at multiple buildings, but you've got such a wide grade band in 2 different locations. That's really interesting. Huh. I imagine, though, that it's got to be maybe a little less onerous that you've got the K6 in one place so that your collection is probably a little easier for K6 versus like K12 all the way across. So does that kind of play out relatively well for your students to have their collections in those? Actually, I'm curious, do you have like a union catalog? Can they like borrow from each other's schools?
They can borrow from each other's schools, especially what I consider middle grades would be about grades 5 through 8.
Yeah.
So that's for me split between 2 buildings. So the way that I handle that is series that are super popular like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson. Of course, we're going to have those full sets in both buildings.
Right.
But for series that might be of interest across that grade band of 5 through 8, I may only have a series in one place or the other, like the Stuart Gibbs Spy Kids series. I think I'm saying the right name. We have that at the elementary, but I still have 7th and 8th graders who want to read it. We bring those books back and forth.
I love that.
Some of those, the Warrior series by Aaron Hunter, there are so many of those, so we have some in each building. For space and for money, we don't buy all the copies of all those series for each school. So it works really well. I have a full-time aide, and she and I swap back and forth. So we're always bringing books back and forth to the building.
That's so great. Man, what a great kind of element built into your collection development that you can kind of plan that out a little bit and say, yeah, we're going to have some here, some there. And that flexibility to be able to move them back and forth so easily. Lucky students. So I'm kind of curious, before we dive into the lesson itself, how did you end up in school librarianship? What was your path to the library?
I started off teaching 7th and 8th grade language arts. I have been teaching it's awesome. I loved it. I enjoyed it a lot. I have taught in the same district for my whole career. This is where I got hired right out of college. And my very first year of teaching, the band director was single. And so
Aha!
So we got together that first year and got married in June thereafter my
Wow.
first year. So I taught English language arts for 3 years, and then I wanted to work on my master's degree, but
Mhm.
I didn't really want to do just education. So I thought, what do I want to get my master's in? So the person who was our district librarian said, I'm thinking about retiring soon. I think you should consider a master's in library science. So I thought, that sounds great. Books, kids, that's my
Mhm.
jam. So
Absolutely.
I started on my library degree from Emporia State University, and she retired before I got my degree finished, but I was able to get hired on and finished up my schooling while I was in the library. So I loved that because every class was that much more practical because I was able to hands-on every day in my job be
Right.
putting all of these ideas into practice.
Man, I love that. At some point, I have to run stats on how many of my guests have gone into the school library after the school's librarian comes to them and says, "Hey, have you thought about doing this?" Because I feel like that really happens quite a bit, like pretty regularly.
Yes, and it was a great fit. I have been in the library now 25 years, and I just love it. And it does make me extra busy because I'm teaching that 6th grade reading class, but I do love getting to keep working with students in that way. I do really enjoy it.
That's
So it's kind
awesome.
of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes especially people outside of the library world, outside of the library, like even in the hallways around us, can forget that we're the teacher librarian. And I was telling you before we jumped on and started recording that I did an orientation with some of the 7th grade students just a couple of days ago. And one of the things I tried to really spell out to the parents and the students that were there was I am a teacher librarian. Like I teach and I help manage the library. I've got special degrees. I made sure I pointed out I had to go and get a master's degree to do this because there's so little sometimes knowledge of what it really takes to run a library. People think, oh, you got books and you check them out. And, how hard can that be? And as someone who was going through the coursework while you were doing it, I mean, that's just, I mean, because you're doing it. But it's just one of those things that I don't know. It's hard to get people to understand how much goes into the school library.
Yes, I agree. I teach weekly classes for pre-K through 5th grade. And so I think that helps a little bit. And I do try to post I have a library, Facebook, social media account, but then also post on our district's social media account so they can see what kind of teaching and learning goes on in the library so they know it's beyond. Of course, checking out books is really important, but like you said, we want to emphasize our teaching role as well and
Yeah.
to really try to share that with our stakeholders.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that people don't understand about the library and teaching and helping students get settled for the new year, you've got this amazing activity that you do with your students. And I love that you wrote about it for Knowledge Quest. And I'm really excited that you're going to talk a little bit about it because it's so brilliant. It is just such a good idea. And I'm just curious, before we get into the details of it, how did you sort of come to the idea that this needed to be a thing? Like, what was the genesis of this activity with your students?
Beginning of every school year, when I see my elementary students on day one, the very first thing I want to do is get a book into their hands. So I do a very quick refresher of our library procedures with checking out and those kinds of things, and then let everybody get a book on their hands. So that's my goal for lesson 1. Then when I see them the next week, the next thing I want to do is spend more time talking with them about different sections of the library. And we talk about library neighborhoods. So what am I in the mood for today? Do I want a story? If I do, I'm going to head over here to the fiction neighborhood. Now, do I want something that's short that I could read in one sitting? I'm going to head over to the Everybody books. And in our library, those are on the shelves that are against the wall by the windows. So we say head over to the window wall if you're wanting a short picture book. If you're wanting a fiction story, something that's going to have chapters and be longer, then those are going to be the shelves. And in our library, they point at the windows. Or are you wanting facts today? Head on over to our nonfiction neighborhood. So we approach it in that way of wanting to make kids independent on thinking about what am I looking for today? Where do I go in my library to find that?
I love that. Whenever we can put more power in our students' hands and help them sort of take care of their own needs, that's to my mind, we're doing exactly what we should be doing, you know? And I'm sure we were just saying how the library is more than just books, but this is going to be a very book-centric episode, and I think that's important and that's okay. I'm sure you saw that there was a recent study about how reading for pleasure has declined over the past 10, 15, 20 years by a ridiculous amount. And it's just, I've got that in my mind as we're getting back into school mode. And I'm trying to think about what are the ways that I can try and get kids to just find those things they're going to love to read. And I love that this activity is helping them do that. So we've got our place set before us. We've got our plate. We're ready for the entree. Why don't you walk us through? So what are students doing when they come into the library before you've started this lesson? Like, what are they going to see as they come in? How are you preparing them to take part in this?
We do this library mapping lesson with fourth graders. Number one, my fourth graders, I need to keep them active. They need to be up and moving around. And so by the time they're in fourth grade, we've done quite a few lessons in years previous about sections of the library. So I think about this lesson as building on the foundation that they have gotten years prior. So I feel like in second and third grade is when I really work a lot about what is a fiction book? How are they organized? How do we find it? What is a biography? How are those organized? How do I find a biography that I'm interested in? And so I'm kind of building upon those lessons. So when my fourth graders walk in, they come in and have a seat, and I have up on the smart board the library map. Now, our elementary school was built in 2010, which I was on staff at that time. So I'm lucky enough to have a floor plan, an architectural drawing.
Nice.
So I have that up on the board, and we talk about what a floor plan is. This is a view of our library as if you had lifted off the roof and you're looking down. And so kids
love that. Even just that itself is such a good information literacy lesson. We've got visual literacy that we've got to think about when we're looking at a map. What is that showing us? How do we think about it? And just to going on tangent just for a second, floor map, having a map of the actual floor plan of your library. I didn't have one. And I spent a ridiculous amount of time last year, like measuring this wall and measuring this bookcase and trying to figure out and putting it into a 3D program so that I can kind of place it all. And it's one of those things that when you don't have it, you don't realize how useful it is. And as soon as you have it, I mean, I've got them now plastered all over different websites and different places in the library so you can refer to them and find stuff a lot easier. So good on you I'm so glad that you were able to take this resource when they were redoing your library and kind of carry it into a useful aspect of not just planning, but now actual use of that space. That's really great.
And we use that floor plan not just with our students, but we have it whenever we are training either new student aides, our sixth graders can apply to be library aides, or when we have turnover and I have a new adult aide that I'm training. So that's going to be in our procedures notebook. And so it's going to show this is where fiction is. This is where biography is. So as they're starting out, they have that to guide them. So it has been really, really useful and helpful to have that.
Love that. I hadn't gotten there yet because I was building mine last year. So it's still a little bit of work in progress, but I am absolutely now going to print some to put into a binder so that people can say, oh, now I can find where things are when Dr. T's not here. Oh boy. I am just learning so much from this before we've even gotten to the actual good stuff. So thank you. So the students are coming in. You've got your map. You've got your floor plan. You're kind of helping them figure out how do we read a map. Where do we go from there?
So then we start orienting. Let's look up what's here on the smart board. How does that match what's in the room? So one of our outside walls is curved and it has a bunch of windows. So that's the first thing somebody notices. Oh, this is the window. So they point to the spot on the smart board and they point to the place in their room. So they're starting to make that connection. Our circulation.
I'm sorry. But I got to say, that is something that I think so many people take for granted, that you're going to look at a map and you're going to understand it. And I used to do a seating chart for my ELA classes, and I would put on the seating chart, like, here's where the whiteboard is, here's where the door to the classroom is, here's where my desk is. So they should be able to triangulate, like, okay, here's where I'm going to go. And the first day of school, I would always say, there's the seating chart, figure out where you sit. And I would guarantee myself 5 to 7 minutes of them trying to figure out, where do I actually sit? Even though there's a picture of them in a desk, just them figuring out, how do I read this image that's in front of me? So I love that you're doing this with the students. Oh, it's so great. Sorry,
It
I
is.
interrupted, but
No, go right
it's just
ahead.
it's one of those things that it seems like it should be so easy. And yet when we don't give them the time to build those skills and we don't make a point of saying, hey, did anyone ever teach you how to do this? A lot of times that's to our own detriment. And we end up wasting a lot more time than if we just taught them the thing in the first place.
Yes. That spatial reasoning, it's really interesting because some students pick it up very naturally and some kids really have to puzzle it out. So it's interesting to see those kids that this immediately makes sense to them. And then they can kind of help out the kids who are maybe struggling a little bit. And once they see, I show them the architectural symbol for a door, which is a straight line and then a curved line beside it. It kind of looks like a shark fin. And then we say, why would that be? Oh, because the door swings open and closed. And so when you're making your floor plan, you don't want anything that's going to come in the way of that door opening and closing. And once they see the doors, that helps a lot. So then we also look at, okay, then think about where the hallway is. Which way would we go to your classroom? Oh, we would go this way to the right on the map. Which way would you go if you're going to music class? Oh, we would go this way on the map. So now they're thinking about the library in relation to the rest of the building as well. And thinking about to the right, to the left. You can also introduce north and south, east and west if you wanted to. Lots of options.
I can see this spinning into sort of a collaboration with one of your history teachers talking about like mapping and like, oh, the kids are looking at maps in their textbooks and they've looked at a map in the library. Maybe we have them make their own maps. How do we help them think? Oh boy, the possibilities.
Yes, they could extend it to their home, their neighborhood. Here's the school. If they walk, here's the school, here's my house, or where is someplace I walk to from my house. So lots of ways to extend it for sure.
Yeah, man. I love it when we can tie stuff in that we might not always have in the front of our mind, but then there's always this additional element that just brings that extra something different that we may not always have at the top of our brains. Boy, I interrupted. You were saying that they're looking at the curved wall for the glass wall's curved, and then you start to talk about the circulation desk, and I cut you off, and I apologize.
That's okay. Our circulation desk is also curved. So that's another kind of landmark, and you can see the light bulb go off as they're kind of figuring that out. So once they have kind of oriented their mind to what's happening on the smart board, then they get a paper copy of that same map. And then they also get a half sheet of instructions. So that's where I am asking them to locate different areas of the library and then to mark it on their paper in a specific way. So we do the first one together and it says, put an X beside the door where you come in. Our library has 2 doors. We have an indoor and an outdoor. So there's a traffic flow around our circ desk. So we look and we find that shark fin, that symbol, architectural symbol for the door. And I invite a student to come up and mark on the smart board an X. So then everybody, I ask them, all right, find that on your paper. You're going to put an X, make sure your X is in the same place. Okay, so we make sure we're all on the same page. And then I invite them to just work on their own. They're welcome to get up out of their chairs, to walk around. This is a great time for them to maybe reacquaint themselves with library signage. Where does it say fiction? It's going to tell you. It's going to say the Everybody books. It's going to say biographies. And so they can move around the library as they need to. It also makes a really great opportunity if we have somebody that's brand new to our school.
Yeah.
I partner them up with somebody, and so they get a hands-on kinesthetic tour of the library space.
That's so great. It's interesting how you're sort of integrating almost a scavenger hunt element and an orienteering element. And as you were talking it through, that they're looking at their maps and they're trying to place where stuff is on the maps and mark their maps. It reminded me that at one of our classes, and I can't remember if it's a gym class or if it's phys ed class or if it's maybe a science class or history class, does an orienteering section. And like, what a great opportunity to kind of connect across the curriculum with, oh, you're talking about that here. Here's an actual practical application of how you can use that right now in our library. So, boy. And kind of a fun, almost a twist on the usual scavenger hunt. Instead of them trying to find a specific thing and prove that they found the thing, now they're trying to find the locations in the library, which arguably might be a more useful skill for them to have to move around the library and find, oh, that's where this stuff is, as opposed to, I found the book, I found page 12 of this book on this shelf, which can be fun and absolutely engages them. Not trying to take away from that, but I love this as an alternative or another way to sort of reinforce those skills.
And this is also a good exercise in following directions, because sometimes one of the instructions is put a star where your librarian sits to check out the books. And then there's also an opportunity for them to share their favorite part of the library, where it says draw a picture of yourself in your favorite part. And then at the end, I like to ask them, some kids are picking the story steps where we do read alouds. Some kids are picking fiction or the sports section. So it's always fun to see what they choose for their favorite spot in the library.
What a great way to get to know your readers. And for them to take a little bit of a mental stock of what kind of a reader do I think of myself as? Do I think of myself in a genre? Do I think of myself in a topic? Boy, now I kind of want to have them do the maps, and then I want to scan them all so that I can pull them back up and be like, oh, Billy, you said you like to be in sports. Let's see if we can find you something that you're going to want to read next.
And I am always thinking of my early finishers. I want to have something for them to do. So my instructions, I kind of divided into two sections. So the main section is what I want everybody to get through. And then, some kids are going to fly through that lickety split. And so I have at the bottom challenge. So one of them is find the poetry section. So they could walk the shelves and look for the poetry sign, but they might want to jump on Destiny and type in poetry, find the call number. So it gives a little extra challenge for those kids that are going to breeze right through this activity. And it keeps them engaged for that whole class period.
And what a great way to introduce some different kinds of direction following. Like, I want you to walk the shelves to find this section, but I want you to use Destiny to find this other section. And that way they're kind of getting that experience of, how do I look stuff up? How do I make sure that matches what's on the shelf? Boy.
Exactly. And we talk about that a lot. Sometimes when I come to the library to choose a book, sometimes I want to browse. I just want to walk around and see what catches my eye. Sometimes I might have something in mind. Like, I really want a book about the Kansas City Chiefs. And so that would be an example of a time I want to head right over to the computers and search in Destiny. So it kind of reinforces those two different methods for searching for what you might want to check out from the library.
Man, I don't mean this in a negative way. It's very positive, but it's a simple activity, but it's so powerful, and it has so many of the fundamental skills that we really want them to be able to take and utilize on their own. And I love that this is almost a culmination, because you said you've been showing them where stuff is in the library for a couple of years, and now you're kind of putting that power in their hands. So instead of it being come to me first, now it can be, well, do you remember when we talked about this? Let's see if you can figure it out. And if not, then you can come to me, but I want you to give it a shot on your own first. Great chance to kind of put that power in there, not just the power, the responsibility sort of shifting over to be in their hands too.
Exactly. That is exactly the plan. And I've just found, for my students anyway, developmentally, 4th grade is where they are ready to kind of take that next step and move more into that self-directed, and they need less help from me. So this is a nice activity to kind of move them in that direction.
Now, I'm kind of curious, because you do work at multiple levels, do you end up redoing this with the older students when they go to the new school, or is this purely something that you're doing with the lower grades?
I do, because it's a completely different building. One of my favorite moments is my kids that are really big readers and that love reading. When they step into their new library as 7th graders, their grin is so big, because it's, look at all these books that I haven't read yet. They're so excited. So we do a scavenger hunt, and that I developed a few years ago, and I modeled it off of an idea from librarian Melissa Corey, who is a school librarian in Missouri, and she very generously shares some of her library scavenger hunt activities. So I kind of got the idea from her and then adapted it. So in our library, we printed off little pictures of superheroes, like there's a Spider-Man. So it has a picture of him and then underneath the word Spider-Man, and there's Hawkeye, and there's Black Widow, and there's Thor. So these items are not hidden, but placed, I guess, in different areas around the library. And so then their scavenger hunt says, okay, go to the area where you're going to return your books and which superhero is there. And so they go to that area and they write down the superhero. Head to the historical fiction genre and find some books by Alan Gratz. Which superhero is there? And then they write that down. Where would you go if you want to see the new books? Where's the new book display? Which superhero is there? So it's
nice.
A similar idea, but they have a whole lot of fun, and it's way better than me standing up at the front and telling them where all these things are. I mean, we do a quick, here's the area of fiction, here's the area of nonfiction. And we have some library maps so that they can look where are the different genres in addition to the signage. And then we kind of turn them loose, and it's been really successful.
I bet you that's a really fun moment for the kids who have gotten that in fourth grade, mapping out the fourth grade library. And then when they get to seventh grade and they're trying out this similar set of skills in a slightly different way, I bet you there's a little bit of a callback for a lot of them that are going, oh yeah, that's right, we did this before, but now new space.
Exactly.
That's a great moment. Yeah. I love that you've sort of combined the mapping and the scavenger hunt, and you've done it in a sort of a fun, engaging way that usually when I think of scavenger hunt, I think find this thing, and you've almost reversed it and said, go to this place and tell me what the thing is that's there, which kind of adds that little bit of extra. Did you actually go to the right place? Did you know where you were going? So that's kind of a fun little twist there. That's neat.
Yes. And the students have really responded well to it. So they seem to have a lot of fun, a lot of energy in the room.
I bet. Completely unrelated, but you kind of mentioned in passing, your high school library, your 712 library is genrefied?
It is.
Okay. Is your K4 library genrefied?
It is not.
Gotcha. I was just curious because I just got ours genrefied last year. Well, we just reopened our library for the first time in 5 years last year. So everything's new, but the genreification, I feel like, has really helped a lot of students just find something to be interested in. Like you were saying before, sometimes just want to browse. So knowing where the sections are, I think, is such an important element of that. So I'm already planning how I'm going to adapt this with my students when we're doing our orientation, because it's phenomenal. It's really, really great. So it sounds like this is something that really works well you can really easily adapt it to whatever learner levels you're at, it seems. You could use this with lower grades, you could use it with upper grades, but also just within a class, it almost seems like there's a lot of ways to differentiate if you need to.
Definitely. And it's easy to partner kids up. In general, I have them go on their own, but if there's a student that I know maybe that is going to have trouble reading the instructions on their own, decoding is a struggle for them, that's a great time to partner them up. Or like I mentioned, if someone is brand new to the school and doesn't have those years of library skills instruction that I've kind of put in place as their foundation, then that's a great time to partner them up.
Yeah. Man. And I imagine too that it's a great opportunity if you've got like an ESL class that comes in, or you know that there are students who are going to particularly gravitate toward a particular kind of book or style of book, that you can sort of build that into the map activity to say, oh, hey, here's our graphic novels. Here's our language, different language titles. Like that's just a great way to get them just feeling comfortable in the space and help them find, oh, this is the place I might want to start out to, figure out where I'm going to go from here.
Definitely.
Boy.
And I always make sure that I'm highlighting some of those sections that I know kids are going to want to know about, like Alan Gratz is so popular. So they're going to want to know where those books are. At our school, our nonfiction, especially sports, football, NFL, Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. So I make sure that we have one of our superheroes there. So the students are going to know where that section is. I have some kids that maybe reading books isn't their favorite thing, but they're interested in magazines. So I make sure they make it to the magazine section. We have things like Car and Driver. We have a hunting magazine, four-wheel and off-road. So some of those kinds of things appeal to our students that maybe a book isn't what they would choose, but they might grab a Sports Illustrated or one of our other magazines.
Man, I was saying that we can't always just focus on books when we started this conversation. And I am so focused on mapping where the books are in the library, I didn't even think about here's other resources that I can map them to and have them go check out. Boy, I am so glad we're having this conversation because I am just aflow with ideas here. Boy, this is so great.
Another thing we added in our high school space, grade 7 through 12 space, is the students are one-to-one with Chromebooks, and the library copier printer is one of their locations that they can print to. So we make sure that they can find that and that they realize it's black and white and it is not in color. So that's part of it. We also have a Destiny search station that's up in a Chromebook kiosk. So we want to make sure they know about that. So if they come into the room and they don't have their Chromebook with them, or they don't want to take the time to log into their Chromebook, they can always step right up to that station. Destiny is logged in and ready to go. And so that's another feature that we point out to them and make sure that they catch that when they're doing that scavenger hunt.
Man, I am getting more and more glad that I took the time to map out my library last year, because now I'm thinking like I never put the kiosk for the electronic pass sign out. I got to put that on there. I got to put where's the game section? Where's the colored pencils? Like, oh boy, you're giving me a lot of homework here, but it's important and good homework. So I appreciate it.
And like you're saying, it really is a simple idea, but just the act of them getting up and walking around, and they're on their own and they're in groups, I think it just really sticks with them so much better than sitting in a chair and listening to someone explain it when it's
Absolutely.
so easy. It's so easy to tune out, you know?
Yeah. It's really hard to tune out when you're supposed to be walking around doing stuff. So
yes.
Boy. So, this is awesome. If people are going to try this out for the first time, is there anything that they might want to have in mind as they're getting ready to kind of implement this for the first time? Any tips, suggestions?
I would say think about what age you want to introduce it to. If you wanted to introduce it to younger students, you might just simplify it. Where do we go to find a story? Where do I go to find facts? Or you might put it up on the board and talk about it all together, but maybe students might not necessarily be up moving. So maybe you have a map and you say, with red, color the places where you go to find a story. With blue, color the place where you would go to find facts. In yellow, color the place where we sit to listen to stories. So that would be a way to kind of modify that maybe for your younger audience. And then if you are doing something that's structured in a similar way to what I'm doing with the fourth grade, you would want to make sure that you have given them the groundwork so that they understand what is fiction, what is nonfiction, what is biography, so that they're going to have the foundation to help them be successful when they do that activity.
Yeah, that's a great point. Man, I hadn't even thought about the fact that this makes an outstanding handout for the students to have during orientation. Now even if you aren't paying as much attention as you should, you've at least got a resource that you can start with if you are coming in and you're like, wait, where was I supposed to go for this, looking for this stuff? Oh boy, just adding to my homework list, but it's important. It's good. I love it. Oh, so good. So,
thanks, Steve.
I'm curious, how long have you been doing this with your students?
I'm trying to remember. I've been here for 25 years, and so it's hard to know.
But you've been doing this for a bit.
Yes, I would say probably between 5 and 10 years. And again, I thought, I wish I would have thought of this earlier.
Yeah, totally. So I'm kind of curious. So if you've been doing it for a while, are you hearing feedback from the students or the staff? Are you seeing that the students are better able to navigate afterwards? Clearly that you're continuing to do it. You're seeing useful results from this, but I'm curious if there's been any kind of feedback you've sort of noticed from it.
I don't know that I have heard feedback from people, but just what I have observed. Again, we've kind of talked about how in fourth grade, I'm looking for them to be more independent. And so I'd see that when a class comes in to check out, if they know they're in the mood for a graphic novel, that's where they go and they're going to browse those shelves. And if a student is unsure. Sometimes they'll kind of linger around the checkout desk and they'll say, I don't know what to get. And I'll say, what do you think? Are you looking for a graphic novel today? Do you want a story or do you want facts? So they'll think about it and give me an answer. And then we can head over to that area and do some browsing, or if they're looking for something specific, sometimes I'll say, what do you think? A mystery, a fantasy, and they can throw out an idea and we can kind of go from there.
Love it. And now you've even got me thinking about providing maps to the teachers so that if they're going to send a class down to get some resources, or if they're just trying to themselves figure out like what resources do we have, them having a map might actually be a really useful resource too.
Yeah. And just posting it in the library, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And now I'm thinking about our print station, and like I could do a hyperlinked version that's got the directions. So when they click on it, they can know what to do before they even show up. Boy, this is turning into an awesome project now. I love this. Boy, this is awesome. I am so glad that you came and shared this. Thank you so much for sharing all these ideas and for just getting our brains racing, because there's so many possibilities with this. We are now going to take our 90-degree turn and go into our book break. Woohoo! So anything you want to share, personal, professional, for the students, for the staff, for just us, what do you want people to know that they should maybe get their eyes on for some reading?
I want to talk about a professional book, and it is called Disrupting Thinking. It is by Kylene Beers and Robert Probst. And I would say that this has impacted my 6th grade reading class as well as what I do in the library. And what I love about it is when I work with my 6th graders in reading class, the advanced readers. So the classroom teachers are keeping the kids that are at grade level and below, and I have the kids that are reading above grade level. So what I really wanted to do was to expose them, or really encourage through this class, the joy of reading. So I guess instinctually that made me think I want to do less paperwork. I want them to do less paperwork. We want to do more reading, more discussing, more connecting it to the outside world, more creative projects, and all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So disrupting thinking really gives you the research behind why that is an okay thing to do. So I loved that. So it's what I wanted to do, but it's like, okay, but now here's the research why we don't have to do a giant worksheet or a summary for every single chapter.
Yeah.
And the idea of how do we make meaning? And the big idea of this is when I read something, how does that make me better? How does it make me a better person? So that can apply to nonfiction or to fiction. If I'm reading nonfiction, the way that it makes me better is maybe I'm learning new facts that I didn't know before. If I'm reading fiction, maybe it's helping me be more empathetic. Maybe it is giving me a window into an experience that I have never had. And so I'm going to be a better friend, or I'm going to be a better daughter to one of my parents, or something like that. So
Absolutely.
I love the idea of how does this book make me better, just as a thought process for anything that we read. And I think that's way more important than what is the main idea of chapter 1.
Yeah.
And I know that kids need all of those skills, but I love being able to take them beyond that and to challenge them to think about what they read in a new way.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that for years now, I have just noticed more and more that schools have gotten really good at beating the love of reading out of students. And part of it is this push for more data, and we need more accountability. And it's like, yeah, but that does not make people want to do stuff. Trying to hold them accountable does not make them want to do it. Having numbers about it doesn't make them want to do it. And I get it. Like as a reformed English teacher, I get that struggle of, oh boy, there's, people are going to be looking at me and expecting me to be able to say, here's why we're doing this, and here's the numbers, blah, blah, blah. But I love that you get the opportunity to work with students in this way and remove those barriers really to them just enjoying the reading and getting rid of like you said, the paperwork, getting rid of the busy work that we often feel compelled as educators to include so we can justify, here's why we're doing this, and it's, boy, okay, well, this is going near the top of my reading, and hopefully I'll be able to bring it to my ELA teachers too and help them kind of see, yeah, this is really something we can encourage.
And I think the best thing to come out of disrupting reading is a reading strategy that's called book, head, heart. So when kids are reading, we want to ask them to be able to discuss what's happening in the book. Okay, so that would be more the literal, what's going on, what's happening in my head. So that's going to be maybe some more inference or compare and contrast. And then heart is, how does this book make me better? How does this book make me feel? And it's a very simple list. I think maybe there are 3 or 4 questions under book, 3 or 4 under head, 3 or 4 under heart. So I give all of my students a bookmark with those questions for them to think about as they're reading. But I love it because it applies to anything that you read. And again, it just really focuses on the reason why we're reading. And I think it, like we were talking about, it lets you focus more on the joy and the enjoyment and what am I getting from this rather than cite the text evidence. Give 3 reasons why this is
Yeah. In chapter 12, why did Johnny do this? Like, no, like let's actually engage with the story instead of just reciting trivia that's never going to be useful again. I have to admit, I am not generally a huge professional book reader. I spend way too much time in fiction and just nonfiction too, but like looking for stuff from my library and just enjoying my reading. And this is I really appreciate this recommendation because it is clearly something that I need to dig into a little. So thank you very much for bringing that too. Thank you for everything you have brought us, because you have brought us so many great ideas and so many ways we can apply these ideas and a great book title. I mean, Amy, it's just been a pleasure to have you. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here because I know you just started off school. I'm getting ready to gear up. I haven't even had to go back yet. You're sitting in your library right now, recording this after school. I appreciate that time. I appreciate you sharing with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for the episode. They feature links to resources shared by our guest, as well as ways to keep in touch with them, and links to the book break titles. I'd love to hear from you. If you have feedback, a comment, an idea, a question, or something you want to share, you can email drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. Know a librarian with something we could learn from? Let us know. Until next time, be good, be safe, and be well.